On today's show, I'm going through my ACC Football 2026 predictions, best bets, win totals, preview, and more. Welcome in. This is Winning Cures Everything. It's a college football podcast. I'm your host, Gary Segars. And go on and let me get through this right quick. All right, I got a new channel for the clips. You can find it on YouTube. Search for WCE CFB Clips. Or just search WCE Clips and you'll be able to find it. It's the football one. You can also find my shorts videos on Instagram. That's at Winning Cures Everything. And I'm on TikTok and X at GaryWCE. All right, let's talk about the ACC because this conference walks into 2026 with one incredibly easy question and about 100 hard ones. The easy question, of course, who's got the best team? And that's Miami. I don't think there's much of a debate there. The Hurricanes came within about a minute of winning the national title. I mean, they had a drive at the end of the game where they could have taken the lead. They're about as close as you can get. They went into the portal. They grabbed one of the best quarterbacks in the country. They've simply got more proven talent than anybody else in this league. And that's after they lost as many people as they did. The hard question for the ACC is everything that comes after Miami, right? Who is actually the second best team here? Like, is it SMU with Kevin Jennings and maybe the cleanest schedule out of any of the legit contenders? Is it Louisville, where Jeff Brom just keeps winning 9 games and now he might have the best running back room in the conference? Is Clemson still Clemson? Are we going to watch a just massive transition season of the Dabo Swinney era? Then you got more questions like James Franklin. Can he make Virginia Tech matter again? Can NC State turn the easiest conference schedule in the league into a trip to Charlotte? Was Virginia's 11-win season the start of something real, or was it, just a one-year portal miracle that nobody can recreate? Like, what do we do with Duke, the defending ACC champion, which is still funny to say, after Miami just walked off with their quarterback and their top receiver? Right? That is the 2026 ACC right now. Miami miles ahead on paper. But behind the Hurricanes, the whole thing's wide open. You got returning quarterbacks, you got transfer quarterbacks, you got major coaching changes, contenders that are rebuilding entire offensive lines, teams that are replacing whole defensive fronts, right? Like some programs are going to play 8 conference games, others are going to play 9. And because the schedules are so lopsided, like the second best team in this league might not even be the team that ends up in the second spot in the ACC championship game. Like last year, Miami played for the national championship, and the schedules broke in such a way that they didn't even play in the ACC title game. You had Virginia and Duke. How weird is that? Like the 2 teams that beat Miami didn't even make it to the ACC title game either. And that's kind of what makes this league fun, right? The ACC is not the deepest conference in football. It might not have a clear second national title contender, but it's got enough quarterbacks, enough coaches, good coaches, enough roster turnover, and, of course, the scheduling weirdness that's going to give us chaos on almost every single Saturday. So today, we're going to break down all 17 teams, and we'll do it relatively quickly, right? We're going to go through the tiers, the quarterbacks, the coaching changes, the best offenses, the best defenses, the schedule breaks, the scheduling disasters, the championship race. I'm going to hit on win totals. I'm going to hit on futures markets. And hopefully by the end of this, I will give you my projected title game. I'll give you my ACC champ. I'll tell you who the surprise team is going to be, and the program that I think is most likely to take a real step back. So let's go ahead and get into it. The simplest way to explain the ACC is that they are top-heavy in exactly one spot and shockingly balanced everywhere else. Miami is 8th nationally in SP Plus numbers. The next ACC team behind them is Clemson, all the way down at 23. But that's a huge gap, right? And from Clemson at 23, then you're down to NC State at 47. You got 9 ACC teams packed into just a 24-spot window, right? You got Clemson, Louisville, SMU, Virginia Tech, Florida State, Virginia, Pitt, Georgia Tech, Duke, and NC State, all bunched together. So Miami separated themselves from the pack. Nobody else really has. And the market sees it the same way. Miami is minus 136 to win the conference. Second choice is SMU at plus 700. Louisville is at plus 800. Clemson is all the way back at plus 1,500. That is a massive jump from first to second. And once you get past Miami, the pricing basically admits the market has no idea what to do, right? SMU, Louisville, Clemson, Virginia, Pitt, Virginia Tech, NC State, all being priced as different flavors of the same idea, right? They're good enough to get to Charlotte. They're not trustworthy enough to actually expect it. And this league has some recent history working against anybody trying to make it look predictable, right? I talked about this before, but 2025 ACC Championship, like Duke won that. They didn't even sniff cracking the college football playoff rankings. Miami didn't win the conference, still snuck in as an at-large bid, and that's how important those non-conference games are, everybody. Go ahead, stop scheduling hard games. We'll see. But they made it all the way to the national title game. That's the whole personality of this conference in one sentence. The ACC can produce a national championship team and a totally unexpected conference champion in the same year. Now, Miami's carrying a different kind of pressure now, though this isn't a program that's getting hyped off recruiting rankings and brand name anymore. They have proven that they can win playoff games. They've proven they can handle postseason pressure. They've proven they can line up with the best teams in the country and actually compete for it. And then Mario Cristobal went out and got Darian Mensah. And some people may not be as high on Mensah as I am, but, I mean, I'm sold on this dude. He came over from Duke. He threw for roughly 3,900 yards. He had 34 touchdowns to just 6 interceptions. And Miami went ahead and took his top wide receiver there as well, Cooper Barkate. So it's not just that they poached the defending ACC champs quarterback. They took the quarterback and his favorite target in the same offseason. And Mensah, I mean, he's walking into a room that's already got Mark Fletcher, Jamar Brown. He's got Malachi Toney, who is a Swiss Army knife. He's got Gerard Pringle Jr. Toney alone put up over 1,300 yards from scrimmage last year. He had 11 touchdowns as a receiver, a runner, and a returner. Fletcher is your proven lead back, and the depth behind him lets the offense come at you from a dozen different angles. Now, the question for Miami is not skill positions, right? It's up front. They're replacing 4 offensive line starters. They're also replacing a big chunk of their defensive production, like Reuben Bain Jr., Akeem Mesidor, Francisco Malgoa, linebacker, Wesley Bizanth. Y'all correct me in the comments. I'm going to get better with these names, I swear to God. All those guys are good, right? And they're also all gone. Along with that pass rush, they help carry the team through the playoff run. Miami's got the recruiting talent to be able to plug the holes. And it feels like people are just forgetting that Damon Wilson II is showing up. He racked up 9 sacks and almost 14% pressure rate at Missouri. Replacing talent and replacing proven production are not always the same thing. At least with him, you got some returning production. You know what you're getting. It's not returning, it's proven. How about that? Proven production. Miami should still have one of the best secondaries in the country, right? Still the best overall roster in the league, but they're asking new faces to hold down the 2 spots where continuity matters the most. That would be the offensive line and the defensive front. The other defining story of the conference is going to be quarterback movement, right? It's everywhere. I mean, we just talked Mensah from Duke to Miami. Ethan Grunkemeyer followed James Franklin from Penn State to Virginia Tech. Lincoln Kienholz transferred from Ohio State to Louisville. Ashton Daniels went from Auburn to Florida State. Bo Perbula, he went from Missouri to Virginia, and he's going to compete with another former starter, Pitt quarterback Eli Holstein. Alberto Mendoza, he came over from Indiana to Georgia Tech. Billy Edwards Jr., he went from Wisconsin to North Carolina, and he gets to do, as long as he's healthy, he's going to have Bobby Petrino calling plays for him. We'll talk about that later. But Gio Lopez, he went from North Carolina to Wake Forest. Davis Warren transferred from Michigan to Stanford. Walker Eget went from San Jose State to Duke. How about this? It is just an absurd amount of movement at the most important position on the field. The teams that kept their guy have, I think, an early edge, right? SMU's got Kevin Jennings. NC State still got C.J. Bailey. Pitt, Narduzzi, he's got Mason Heinschel, who showed up late last year and was just awesome. Cal, of course, we hadn't even talked about this one, Jaron Kiawe Songapelotili, a.k.a. JKS, right? Syracuse is going to get Steve Angeli back. And everybody else is like plugging in a brand new quarterback, developing a first-year guy, first-year starter, or they're running a competition that is probably not going to be settled until deep into camp. And that's why the championship race could swing pretty fast, right? Miami has a proven guy. SMU's got a proven guy. NC State's got a proven guy. But Louisville, Clemson, Virginia Tech, Virginia, and Georgia Tech, they're all betting their new options get up to speed quickly enough to keep pace, right? Coaching changes. Biggest one in the league is got to be Virginia Tech. The Hokies hired James Franklin. Virginia Tech went 5 straight seasons without a winning regular season record, which is just wild to think about. Franklin, of course, brings his quarterback with him. He brought offensive coordinator Ty Howell, brought tight end Luke Reynolds, and a handful of players and recruits with Penn State ties. And then, and this is one of the more interesting moves of the whole offseason, former Virginia Tech head coach Brent Pry came back as the defensive coordinator. So he was just fired last year, decided to stay on as James Franklin's DC, and there's a reason for that. They have a working history. Pry was his defensive coordinator at Penn State. Now, Franklin, he doesn't need Virginia Tech competing for a national title right away. He just needs to establish baseline competence. We talked about this with Purdue last year. Like Barry Odom, nobody's expecting anything out of you at Purdue, but if you can get them to a level of competence, that's all you're looking for. And Virginia Tech just needs to reestablish that. Raise the recruiting floor some, which he's already done. Get the Hokies looking organized again. Get 7 wins or 8 wins this year to feel normal instead of like a stretch goal, right? They rank 4th nationally in returning production this year, so it's not a full teardown. There's enough continuity here for Franklin to show some real improvement pretty quick. The catch is, of course, that the schedule is a little difficult. Miami, Clemson, and SMU, all road games. That's a really difficult path to Charlotte, even if the Hokies genuinely get a lot better. Clemson, they're dealing with the biggest reset of the Dabo Swinney era. They went from national championship expectations to a 7-6 season last year. And now you got to go and replace, 9 NFL draft picks? Like Cade Klubnik is one of 7 offensive starters gone. 5 of their top 7 defensive linemen are gone. 3 top 50 NFL draft picks. And they fired their offensive coordinator. So Dabo brought back Chad Morris to run the offense, and he finally got a little aggressive in the portal. They added 10 players. The questions are still major, though, right? Christopher Vizina, he waited behind Klubnik for 2 seasons. Solid in his one career start, but nobody knows what he can do. Can he carry a whole offense yet? We have no idea. And then the freshman Tate Reynolds, he could push his way into the mix. And while Chad Morris knows Clemson, familiarity is not the same thing as certainty. He hasn't run a high-level college offense in years. He was fired at Arkansas forever ago. So he hasn't even worked in college football in a long time. But we're going to see. We'll see exactly what happens with that. There's still plenty of talent at Clemson. The receivers are good. Sammy Brown might be the best defensive player in the ACC. Will Helt, he gets another... he gives the front 7 another proven piece right there. And then Clemson's also got a fairly favorable league schedule, and they get Miami at home. I think it's a classic case of talent versus trust, right? The roster says they should probably be looking at 9 or 10 wins. The recent results and the quarterback transition kind of tells you need to be careful with this. As far as more coaching movement, there's a lot more scattered around the league as well. Tosh Lupoi takes over at Cal. He was Oregon's DC. He's got Jordan Somerville running the offense, Michael Hutchings running the defense, and Nick Rolovich is coaching quarterbacks. Retaining Songapelotili was the biggest win, the biggest thing that Lupoi could do in his first offseason. But almost everything else around him is brand new, right? Stanford promoted Tavita Pritchard, and they're leaning back into their traditional identity. Terry Heffernan takes over the offense there. Chris Richard runs the defense. Georgia Tech, They replaced both of their coordinators. George Godsey takes over the offense. Jason Seymour is running the defense, all while replacing Haynes King, who was their stud quarterback. But also Jamal Haynes, 10 of their top 12 pass catchers. I mean, that's a rough transition. SMU, they are handling their turnover internally, but now they've got 3 offensive co-coordinators and 2 defensive co-coordinators. Some internal continuity can be a good thing. I've got some questions about authority and role clarity until we actually see this whole thing in action, right? Florida State promoted Tim Harris Jr. after Gus Malzahn retired. North Carolina added Bobby Petrino as offensive coordinator. I mentioned that already. Syracuse may be one of the best hires of this entire offseason. I had been hyping Vince Karras at Toledo for bigger jobs for the last 3 years. Yeah, 3 years. And Syracuse finally bid on him. But they're trusting him to fix the defense, make things better at Syracuse because, man, their defense has been bad. Bill O'Brien, of course, taking over play calling at Boston College. Ted Roof is running the defense there. Louisville moved to Steve Ellis and Mark Ivey as their co-defensive coordinators. And they've got to rebuild a unit that's going to lean heavily on transfers like they usually do. Like, the overall coaching talent in this league really probably went up. It also got a lot more volatile schematically. And then, of course, we got to talk scheduling. The scheduling format is weird. No teams added, none left. Notre Dame is still just an affiliate outside of the championship race, but several of these teams are moving from 8 conference games to 9, and there's some. It's so odd. Teams could finish this year with different numbers of league games, different strength of schedules, very different paths through the standings. The 2025 format produced a 5-way tie for second place. 2026 might solve some of that, but they're going to have a brand new pile of tiebreaker headaches. So, yes, Miami is the clear favorite, but it's not like this is a clean conference. It is built for weird standings and surprise contenders and arguments about who really deserves a spot in Charlotte. You want extra Winning Cures Everything content and a way to support the show directly? Head over to buymeacoffee.com/winningcures and become part of the community today.
Are you tired of sore knees or joints slowing you down? Go Sleeves uses built-in kinesiology tape technology to give you support, reduce pain, and help you recover faster. Use code WCE for 15% off over at GoSleeves.com.
All right, let's get into the tiers, and Tier 1 might be the easiest tier we've ever built, right? It's just Miami. That's it. Hurricanes have got the best quarterback in the league, best overall skill talent, best secondary, deepest recruiting pipeline. They're projected 12th nationally on offense, 7th on defense. Mensa gives them proven high-end quarterback play. Barkade already knows how to play with him. Malachi Toney might be the most versatile offensive player in the ACC. Fletcher brings physicality. The young backs behind him give Miami some explosive depth on top of that. And the schedule helps too, right? They avoid SMU and Louisville, the 2 most reliable challengers in the league, and the 2 teams that beat them last year. Now, they do have to go to Clemson on October 3rd, and the biggest overall game on the slate is at Notre Dame on November 7th, which is not a conference game. They also open conference play with 3 straight ACC road games, which matters because Miami has a habit of making easy games harder than they need to be. That might be putting it nicely. They are expected to be favored in 11 games. I have them favored in all 11 games, and by roughly 2 touchdowns in 10 of them. I mean, that's crazy. The floor for this team is probably around 9-3 if the line struggles. The new front 7 takes time, or if they drop another game as a big favorite. But the ceiling is pretty obvious here. Miami can win the ACC. They can get back to the playoff. They can win the national championship. No other team in this conference has that complete a range of outcomes sitting on the roster. Now, Tier 2 is where things start to get interesting, right? Because I think there's more than just 2 teams in Tier 2. I think you've got SMU and Louisville, but then Clemson, Virginia Tech, and NC State. And SMU has got the cleanest path of anybody, right? Kevin Jennings enters year 3 as a starter, and his total QBR hit 76 or higher last year. Like, I wrote that note down wrong. When his QBR hit 76 or higher, SMU only had one loss. Like, he can beat you throwing or running. His health and turnover variance have led to some pretty uneven stretches. But still, this is a super experienced guy that has won a lot, that has been to the playoff, that has been to an ACC championship game. The offensive line is the best in the conference, and that gives the Mustangs stability when they replace their top 4 yards from scrimmage producers, right? Kendrick Raphael, he should get a bigger role in the run game, but SMU does still need like a true lead playmaker to step up. The defense lost 8 linemen who played real snaps, so that's a legit worry. And the co-coordinator setup, I mean, it's got to actually work for this to work. But the schedule is basically built for a title run. They avoid Miami and Clemson. They draw the bottom 5 projected teams in the league. They get 5 conference home games. They could be favored in 10 games total. Now, the early road trips to Florida State and to Louisville are going to tell us everything we need to know about this team. And Notre Dame is the biggest non-conference test. But SMU doesn't have to beat Miami to reach Charlotte, and that is a massive advantage that nobody else has in this tier. Louisville might be the most trustworthy program below Miami. Jeff Brom has won at least 9 games in each of his first 3 seasons. He might have the most explosive backfield in the league. Isaac Brown, Kewan Brown, they combined for over 1,500 rushing yards last year, 8.1 yards per carry. That is a running game that can create explosive plays without leaning on the passing attack to manufacture everything. Now, the receivers got an upgrade. The schedule is manageable. SMU, Florida State, and Pitt all come to Louisville, and they draw 7 of the bottom 10 teams in the conference. Now, the worry is that everything between the quarterback and those running backs is all up for grabs, right? Lincoln Conholes, he's got talent, he's got athleticism. He barely played at Ohio State, though. And Louisville's got only one returning contributor on the offensive line. That is a lot of pressure to put on an unproven quarterback. Brom has done fine with quarterbacks. Like, even Mason or Miller Moss. Even Miller Moss last year wasn't great. He lost his starting job at USC, but they were able to do some things with him last year. The defense might be fine, but only 5 of 16 defenders who played 200-plus snaps last year are back. So Steve Ellis and Mark Ivey, they've got to get a portal-heavy group to mesh quickly. Like, Louisville's got 8 games projected within 1 score. Now, they're projected to win most of those. It's the kind of schedule where quarterback play and, a few late-game decisions are going to swing the difference between 10-2 and 7-5. Right? If Conholes is ready, Louisville can absolutely win this league. If he's not, this is still probably an 8 or 9 win team, but getting to Charlotte gets a whole lot more difficult. Clemson is a team that's got the widest range of outcomes in this whole tier. They're still second in the league in overall SP plus quality, still recruit at a really high level, still have one of the best receiver groups in the conference. Sammy Brown gives them an elite linebacker. Will Helt should stabilize the front. The schedule does create some real opportunity, right? Miami comes to Death Valley. They avoid several of the toughest challengers. But Clemson opens at LSU. They hit Miami early in conference play, and they close the year against South Carolina. And on top of that, everything hinges on whether Vizina and Chad Morris can actually make this offense work, or whoever ends up playing quarterback. Clemson doesn't need a top 10 offense to win 9 games. The defense and the schedule can carry a lot of the weight. They just can't spend another season beating themselves. At plus 1,500 to win the league, that price is a lot more interesting than it was a year ago. The problem is that the price only exists because the market has just completely stopped trusting Clemson. And who can blame them? Virginia Tech is the coaching upgrade play, right? Franklin instantly gives them a more established structure. Grunkemeyer already knows the offense. I mean, over his final 3 starts at Penn State, he completed 76% of his passes. He had 85.2 total QBR. Now, that was without Franklin, but it's the same offense, right? Luke Reynolds gives him a familiar target. The offense should carry the same physical identity that Franklin and Howell used in Happy Valley. The returning production gives them a workable year 1 foundation, and the early schedule buys them a ton of time. They don't see a projected top 30 opponent until they travel to Clemson on October 24th, and they should be favored in every home game before that. Now, that's nearly 2 months for Franklin to develop this roster and build some confidence. The bad news is that the biggest games are all on the road. Clemson, Miami, and SMU. Right? Virginia Tech can get dramatically better, still miss the ACC title game. But if this team is sitting at 6-1 or 7-0 in late October, that's going to be one of the biggest stories in the conference. Like, people will not look at schedule at that point, and the more people talk about this, the better they're going to be. Like, going forward, because they just want to create some noise. It's going to help with recruiting and everything else. And then there's NC State. I hadn't talked about NC State. This is my schedule-based long shot. C.J. Bailey threw for 3,100-plus yards last year, 25 touchdowns. He is the best returning ACC quarterback as far as total QBR. He's got a strong arm that's combined with the ability to escape some pressure and be able to create on the move as well. The issue is his receiving core got rebuilt, and the new portal additions, they got to produce right away. Right? The defense has also finished outside the SP Plus top 60 in back-to-back seasons. That's not good enough for an actual title push. But Dave Doran did catch an incredible draw here. They avoid Miami. They avoid Clemson. They avoid SMU. They avoid Virginia Tech. They play 6 of the projected bottom 7 teams in the league. And as far as my schedule model, they are number 1 as far as the easiest ACC draw. Now, the early stretch, like Virginia, Vanderbilt, Louisville, you're going to have to step up in those games, but you can establish yourself really quickly. And there's also that, no, they're not doing that in Brazil anymore. Still going to be a game against Virginia in Charlotte. So, or not in Charlotte, excuse me, wherever it is. I should have put all this stuff in my notes. The fact of the matter is that if Bailey can carry a rebuilt skill group and the defense ends up climbing from bad to like average, NC State's going to win 9 or 10 games. They don't need to be the second best team in the league. They just need to cash in on the schedule that's sitting in front of them. And they should be favored in the majority of these games. Tier 3 is just a giant collection of volatile bowl teams. Right? Virginia, Pitt, Duke, Florida State, Georgia Tech, Wake Forest, Cal, and Syracuse. Virginia, coming off an 11-3 season, I got no idea how much of that roster actually carries over. They've only got 16 players that are returning out of 40 who play 200-plus snaps, but they're bringing in another 30-man transfer class, which means Tony Elliott is once again going to bet on instant chemistry. The quarterback battle is interesting. Bo Pribula and Eli Holstein, that's 2 real options. But, I mean, I'm not going to say anything totally negative here, but you get the point. Holstein, Pribula adds mobility. He adds experience. Holstein has already proven that he can play in this league, although he did drop off significantly and then lost his job at Pitt. But he's proven that he can play in the ACC. The schedule is really friendly. They avoid Miami, they avoid Clemson, they avoid Louisville. 6 of the opponents come from the bottom 8 of the conference. Their 3 toughest conference games, Florida State, SMU, and Virginia Tech, those are all on the road. That schedule, to me, keeps Virginia relevant, but I don't think they're going to get back to another 10-win, 11-win season, right? I'm not out of this heavily reconstructed roster. I think that's a stretch. Pitt has got more continuity at quarterback. Mason Heinschel improved as a freshman season went on last year. The offensive line is experienced. The run game should be a strength. Pitt should stay physical up front as long as Pat Narduzzi is there. Old Nard Dog doing it up. The problem is most of the receiving production and a big chunk of the secondary need to be replaced, right? The road slate is just brutal at Miami, at Louisville, at Virginia Tech, at Cal. Like, that trip to Cal was rough. I trust Narduzzi to keep the team competitive. I am a lot less confident that they can finish games against that kind of a schedule. Duke is an interesting one, right? They're the defending champs, but It's a totally different offense now. Mensah's gone, Barcade's gone, top 3 receivers are gone. Walker Egat comes in from San Jose State at quarterback. Nate Shepard gives him a proven running back behind a pretty solid line. Manny Diaz has earned real trust, right? And Duke lived in a ton of close games last year. 6 of their conference games are again projected to be within 1 score. And that means the defending champ could finish 8-4, but that could also mean 5-7. Like, the margin is so thin for this team. Florida State is one of the toughest teams in this league to project because they were better numbers-wise than their 5-7 record in just a ton of efficiency metrics. The receiver room should be a real strength this year. Ashton Daniels, he's a physical runner. He might provide more stability than Tommy Castellanos did, even without the explosiveness. And that's not to say he can't be explosive. It's just it's a little different way that they play the game. And then the run defense has a chance to be maybe the best part of Florida State's roster. But the Seminoles replacing their top 7 offensive linemen and the schedule ranking second hardest in our model, as some sources have got it the toughest in the ACC. That's going to be tough, right? They face the projected top 4 teams, 6 of the top 8. They got to travel to Alabama. They travel to Louisville. They travel to Miami. And they also have to play Florida at the end of the year. This team could get genuinely better without the win total moving at all. They could go 5-7 again and be better than they were last year. They probably need to be at least 6-6 to show you're better than last year, but still. Georgia Tech is an interesting one. Might have the most offensive attrition in the league. Haynes King is gone. Jamal Haynes is gone. I already told you 10 of the top 12 pass catchers have left, and both coordinators changed. But they're bringing in Fernando Mendoza's brother, Alberto Mendoza, and Graham Knowles is there too. They're both going to compete at quarterback. Mendoza posted a 99.4 total QBR in just a tiny sample size behind his brother at Indiana. Neither of these guys has proven that they can replace King yet. Justin Haynes comes over from Michigan. Malachi Hosley comes in, gives them a talented backfield. Everything else is kind of under construction, right? Only North Carolina returns less production than Georgia Tech does. And they only play 8 ACC games while most teams play 9, which could matter a lot in the standings, but also don't forget that Georgia Tech has to play Georgia at the end of the year, and that has not worked out very well for them recently. Wake Forest is my biggest regression worry in this whole tier. They went 9-4 last year, but they were 4-1 in one-score games. The offense was wildly inconsistent, even with an experienced line. And this year, they've got 4 starters gone from up there as well. Gio Lopez replaces Robbie Ashford at quarterback. That might be better. I mean, this offense was atrocious last year. They were so bad. The defense won them a ton of games, and the defense should stay respectable, but the schedule gets way tougher. The travel gets heavier. Wake draws 3 of the projected top 4 ACC teams. A respectable defense this year might not be enough to stop a real drop in wins. And that's what I think is going to happen with Wake Forest. Cal is a lot of fun. They've got one of the better quarterbacks in the league. I already talked about I'm going to get this name right. Songapulatelli. JKS. That's all I called him last year. That's probably what I'll be calling him most of the time this year, but still. He threw for nearly 3,500 yards as a true freshman. Keeping him in Berkeley was the single most important thing Tosh Lupoy did all offseason. But almost everything around him is brand new. New staff, new skill group, defense is being rebuilt, offensive line still a question mark. Cal does not get a bye until November 7th, and they've got multiple cross-country trips on the docket. The Action Network, Duck over there, projects Cal to hold only 1 field goal or better edge or advantage against an FBS opponent all season. They're probably not wrong there, right? Like, Songapelatelli can elevate the team, but asking one young quarterback to overcome all of that structural weight is a huge lift. Now, the fact that he's willing to take it on, I think that says a lot about him because he could have left for a lot of different places, but he wanted to stay at Cal. Cheers to that. Syracuse is probably the most interesting team in this tier relative to expectations. They won just a couple of games last year, but Steve Angeli is expected back. The quarterback depth has improved, and hiring in Vince Karras as the DC, that should make the defense noticeably better. I think he is a superstar hire. They also draw 4 of the bottom 6 projected ACC teams. Like the turnover and regression indicators both point the same direction, which is up. Thanks, Phil Steele. This might not be an 8-win team, but it also doesn't need to be it to beat the market. Now, your bottom tier is tier 4. What an odd bunch we have here. North Carolina, Boston College, and Stanford. North Carolina added Bobby Petrino to run the offense, which should raise the overall competency of that unit. Billy Edwards Jr. is the safer veteran option at quarterback. Miles O'Neill gives him a younger developmental path. The problem is that all 5 offensive line starters are gone. But with the way they played last year, maybe that's a good thing. And the early schedule is just brutal here. TCU, Clemson, Notre Dame. That is the worst kind of schedule to be sorting through a brand new line and a quarterback competition simultaneously, right? There could be progress later in the year, but this is still a rebuild. And starting with those 3 games early, like that's rough. That is rough. Boston College, they at least have like a clear offensive identity, right? Evan Dickens should be one of the better running backs in the league. Bill O'Brien takes over play calling. That gives the offense, a real shot to maximize him. The quarterback picture is still kind of murky because you got D2 transfer Mason McKenzie in the mix, but you've also got Arkansas transfer Grayson Wilson. Like, that competition probably needs to get settled pretty quickly. I've got questions about Ted Roof with the defense, right? Like, there is certainly some risk there because it's not like Roof has had a lot of successful tenures as DC, and yet he still keeps getting jobs. Boston College has the hardest conference schedule in my model. This team could improve in spots and still struggle to win more than 4 games, which is why the win total is so low. Stanford they're starting a major rebuild under Tavita Pritchard. Davis Warren brings experience and leadership at quarterback, but he's also got 7 career touchdown passes against 10 interceptions. Dylan Rizek is another option in the mix. Stanford has not won more than 4 games in a season since 2018. They got to make 5 cross-country road trips this year. Like, stability would already count as progress. I think climbing out of the bottom tier is probably going to take a little more than that. All right, let's talk strengths and weaknesses. The biggest strength here is pretty obvious. Miami gives the league a real national championship contender, right? They're not in the playoff conversation just because somebody from the ACC has to be. They already made the title game last year. They upgraded at quarterback, in my opinion, and they kept their elite weapons intact. Along with that, there's real quarterback quality beyond Miami. Jennings has got plenty of experience at SMU. Bailey's coming off 3,100 yards and 25 touchdowns at NC State. Songa Palatelli, JKS, nearly hit 3,500 yards last year as a freshman at Cal. Mason Heinzel gives Pitt some continuity, and, he was really – that Notre Dame game and Miami game just wrecked him. But before that, there was a lot of legend growing about that kid. Grunkemeyer, he flashed real promise late in the season at Penn State before he followed Franklin to Virginia Tech. And then Steve Angeli, very few people are talking about, but he gives Syracuse a rebound path. And Syracuse was good last year with him at quarterback. Now, the supporting cast has changed a little bit. We'll see what they look like, but still, Angeli was good. The running back talent is a strength in this league. It might be just as deep as the quarterbacks. Like, Miami's got Fletcher, Brown, and Pringle. Louisville's got Isaac and Kejuan Brown. Georgia Tech has got Justice Haynes and Malachi Hosley. Duke has got Nate Shepard. SMU has got Kendrick Raphael. And then Boston College has Evan Dickens. On top of that, the league, they've got nationally relevant coaching names top to bottom. Mario Cristobal really, helped his stock last year. Jeff Brom, everybody talks about him. Dabo Sweeney's still up there because he's won a couple of national titles. I say back in the day, that's been less than a decade ago, but still, like Rhett Lashley, James Franklin, you got Bill Belichick, Manny Diaz, Pat Narduzzi, Dave Doran, Tosh Lupoy. There's no shortage of storylines with these coaches. The problem with this league, the weakness, is that there's no established second power. Like Miami, we already talked about some of these numbers. Miami is number 8 in SB Plus right now. Clemson is next at 23. And you've got between 23 and 47, you got 9 teams in there. So it's Miami and then everybody else. I don't think that's necessarily good for anybody. The other big weakness is turnover at the line of scrimmage, just across the board. And I feel like this is the same thing with every conference, everywhere. Miami's replacing 4 offensive line starters. Louisville only has 1 returning contributor up front. Florida State is replacing their top 7 linemen. North Carolina is replacing all 5 starting linemen. Wake Forest is replacing 4. Georgia Tech rebuilding the whole interior. Clemson technically has more continuity, but a lot of that only exists because injuries forced younger players onto the field last year. And the defensive front losses are just as bad. Miami loses the core of their playoff pass rush. Clemson replaces 5 of their top 7 defensive linemen. Louisville only returns 5 of 16 defenders who play 200-plus snaps. SMU lost 8 contributing defensive linemen, and Duke has to replace their top 4. That's why so many teams in this conference are hard to trust. The quarterbacks and the coaches can create good football, but close games usually come down to protection and pressure and running the football and third downs, right? And way too many ACC teams are rebuilding those exact areas right now. All right, so let's talk about key players and best units in this conference. Darian Mensah is the best quarterback in the ACC and probably the most important player in the conference. Yeah, I'm going to say that. I think he's the most important player in the conference. 34 touchdowns against 6 interceptions last year, and now he's moving from Duke's supporting cast to Miami's. Like, he's already got Barkate, he's already got Tony, he's already got Fletcher, he's got a stacked group of young backs behind him. If the line gives him time, Mensah has got a real Heisman path, and Miami has got a national championship offense. Jennings is second for me at SMU, purely because of the experience plus the dual threat combo, right? His best games can beat anybody in this conference, but the question is whether he avoids the turnovers, if he can stay healthy, and if he can produce in a way, we'll just say if he can produce across an entire championship run, right? CJ Bailey, I think, is third. Strongest arm among the top returning quarterbacks. He's capable of dragging NC State through the soft parts of the schedule as long as the new receivers hold up, their end. JKS, I think, is fourth. He might have the highest individual ceiling outside the top 3. He was already flirting with, what did I say, 3,500 yards as a true freshman. The only question is whether Cal can actually protect him and surround him with enough talent. Because his number, it's not like his numbers were great last year, but for what he had and what he was pretty good. Pretty good. Mason Heinchel is 5th. He got better with experience. Should have a pretty good line and a pretty good running game behind him. Number 6 for me, Grunkemeyer. His late season numbers were excellent. His familiarity with Franklin and with Howell and with Reynolds, that should smooth the transition here. Best offense in the league, that belongs to Miami. They're 12th, or projected 12th nationally, with the best overall skill position group in the conference. Duke is surprisingly projected 19th, even after losing Mensah and Barkate. And that just kind of gives you an idea of how much confidence there is in Nate Shepard and the offensive line, and with Manny Diaz's ability to keep the whole operation functional. SMU projects 25th behind Jennings in the veteran line. Virginia Tech is 34th, NC State 35th, Louisville 36th. Louisville might have the league's best rushing attack, but its offensive ceiling, I think, depends entirely on Kindholes and that rebuilt line. The best defense is also going to be Miami. They are 7th nationally. Now, the secondary could be elite. Wilson gives the pass rush a proven transfer piece. Clemson is projected 16th with Sammy Brown and Will Helt leading that group that they still got a lot of frontline turnover to sort through. Louisville is number 26 here. Virginia is 27th. Florida State 30th. SMU and Wake Forest sit just outside the national top 30. Although SMU's defensive line losses and Wake's possible offensive decline could put some extra strain on both of those units. The best overall playmaker in the league, I think, is going to be Malachi Toney. The best running back, I'll say Isaac Brown. I think that's, yeah, I feel good about that. Best defensive player, Sammy Brown at Clemson. Though Damon Wilson might have the strongest pass rush profile as far as the NFL eyes. That's possible. Best receiver group is going to be Miami's, followed by Clemson, Florida State, Louisville, and SMU. The best offensive line in the ACC, I think that goes to SMU. But you've got some other experienced ones. You got Virginia, Virginia Tech, Pitt that also have some pretty experienced groups there. Miami's got the recruiting upside up front, just not the continuity yet, although I think they're probably going to be great. The best secondary in the league is Miami's. Clemson and Virginia Tech, they've got pieces to become high-end units as well. Shirts, hoodies, hats, and more. The latest WCE merch is now available. Support and rep your favorite college football show today. Just visit winningcureseverything.com/store. If you can't watch the show live, no problem. Subscribe to the Winning Cures Everything audio podcast and never miss an episode. Of course, make sure that you leave a 5-star review, and don't forget, it's available everywhere you get podcasts. All right, the scheduling dynamics are where the ACC race could basically get decided before some of these teams even play each other, right? The hardest conference schedule in our model belongs to Boston College. Florida State is second, Stanford number 3, Wake Forest 4, North Carolina 5. I don't have a lot of faith in any of those teams being able to do much this season. As far as the rest of the top 10 toughest draws, Virginia Tech, Georgia Tech, Pitt, Clemson, and Syracuse round out the 10 toughest draws there. The easiest ACC schedule belongs to NC State. SMU is second, Miami third, Louisville fourth, Virginia fifth. Cal and Duke round this thing out at number 6 and number 7. The gap is a massive part of the championship conversation, right? NC State avoids Miami, Clemson, SMU, and Virginia Tech. SMU avoids Miami and Clemson, and they get the bottom 5 projected finishers. Miami avoids SMU and Louisville. Louisville draws 7 of the bottom 10 teams in the conference. Virginia, or at least projected bottom 10. Virginia avoids Miami, Clemson, and Louisville. And then you got teams like Florida State that are playing the projected top 4 teams, 6 of the top 8, and Alabama and Florida. It's not even the same sport that those two schedules are playing, right? Miami's first 3 ACC games are all on the road, so they got to settle in that new offensive line in a hurry. The trip to Clemson on October 3rd is the first real league test. The road game at Notre Dame on November 7th is the biggest national game on the whole schedule. But Miami finishes with a run of favorable home games. They should be favored nearly every week, sans Notre Dame. SMU season might turn on the early road test that they got. Yes, their schedule's easy, but they got to play at Florida State in week 1 and at Louisville in week 3. I mean, the first big ACC game of the year is probably that Florida State SMU one in week 1, but the one between projected top 3 teams, that's on September 19th. It's the first big game of the year between 2 non-Miami contenders. You win that one, and SMU becomes the clear favorite of the second title game spot. You lose it, and then Louisville's got the head-to-head edge, really in a race that could get crowded pretty quickly. Louisville doesn't start off easy. Like, they play Ole Miss in Nashville, but they're projected to be favored in every game after that. They've still got 8 games expected to finish within 1 score. It's a team that can absolutely contend, but they are living under constant pressure the whole way with an unproven quarterback. Clemson opens at LSU. They host Miami on October 3rd. That's a game that could totally flip the perception of this team. But you beat Miami, and Clemson is instantly a serious title threat. You lose it decisively, and it feels like that gap between Miami and everybody else just gets more obvious. Virginia Tech, they don't see a projected top 30 opponent until October 24th at Clemson, which buys Franklin like real time. We talked about that. But we did talk about how the closing stretch is pretty difficult, right? Trips to Miami, to SMU still on the docket. Virginia's schedule, friendly overall, but their three toughest conference games, Florida State, SMU, and Virginia Tech, those are all on the road. Florida State goes to Alabama, Louisville, and Miami. They host Florida. They face Clemson late in October. It's a schedule that could sink even a good team, let alone one that is replacing an entire offensive line and their offensive coordinator and so forth and so on, right? There's some fun landmines scattered around this conference. NC State and Virginia play in week 0. Clemson opens at LSU, Louisville, Ole Miss, and Nashville. We talked about that. Pitt goes to Virginia Tech. Duke goes to Virginia. That's an ACC championship game rematch. Duke visits Miami. Right, Mensa against his old team. SMU has to go to Notre Dame. Florida plays at Florida State. South Carolina goes to Clemson. Georgia Tech closes against Georgia. These are all interesting, fun games. The ACC has got one clear favorite, but the way that these schedules are shaping up, like every single contender has a different path and really just a different set of problems. All right, I'm not going to waste time with this championship race. My projected ACC championship game is going to be Miami against SMU. Miami, the obvious side here, best roster, best quarterback, highest projected conference win total, schedule that avoids both Louisville and SMU. They've already proven they can handle postseason football. SMU's path is the cleaner pick for the second spot because of Jennings and that offensive line. They avoid Miami and Clemson. They draw the 5 lowest projected teams in the league. They're probably going to be favored in 10 games. And that really tough game at Notre Dame does not count in the conference schedule. Louisville might edge SMU on a neutral field, but the quarterback uncertainty makes them a lot harder to project. And that's why Louisville is my first team out. But, and the other part of this is that Louisville is good for upsets and whatnot. Like, you could absolutely see them beating SMU, and Brahms' bunch somehow finds a way to lose games that they absolutely should not. And I don't know where on the schedule it would show up, but, I mean, Stanford recently, like, lost to Pitt. Like, just stuff that should not be happening with them, especially if they were a good enough team to beat a team like Miami. But they're good for upsets, you know. So I don't trust them to get to the ACC title game, but they could certainly play a hand in seeing who gets there. Clemson is another alternative here. Talent schedule are certainly there. Beating Miami at home, that would be the one result that could flip the entire race. But my call is going to be Miami against SMU. I've got Miami winning the whole thing for the first time ever, but also under Cristobal. But Mensa is the best quarterback in this league. And then you got those playmakers, right? Tony, Barkate, the running backs, all that. He's got an elite set of weapons. Secondary, going to be one of the best in the country. And Miami simply got more replacement talent than anybody else here. The concerns in this conference are pretty real, though, right? 4 new offensive line starters, the front 7 losses. Like, Miami's habit of dropping games as a heavy favorite is real, but it's still the most complete team in the conference. Like, I've got, like, medium to high confidence that they're going to win this. Much less confidence than I would actually... I wouldn't want to bet that price. How's that? Like, I wouldn't want to bet that price for Miami. And since we're already talking betting and marketing angles, or market angles, let's talk money. Let's talk money. Miami is who I expect to win the ACC. Miami at minus 136 is not a future that I want to buy. Now, I don't think those two things are contradictory, right? Like, I like the team, I don't like the number. At minus 136, they've got to avoid the kind of regular season slip-up that has burned this program before. And they've still got to rebuild that offensive line, and they've got to replace some major front seven production. I think the talent is there to do it. Like, Miami can win the conference and still be a bad preseason bet because the payout does not cover the risk, right? Win total is at 10.5. It's priced around minus 110 either way. I'd pass on that. Like, Miami could easily go 11-1. You wouldn't expect them to win at Notre Dame this year. But the line transition, the Clemson road trip, like, there's enough uncertainty that I don't need to force a side with this. Virginia is another one that looks expensive relative to what they've replaced, right? They won 11 games last year. Only 16 of the 40 players who logged 200-plus snaps are back. You've got another 30 transfers or whatever it is that have to gel immediately. The schedule is excellent. That kind of keeps me off of the under, but I couldn't justify betting over 7.5 off of last season's results when this roster is not last season's. And the juice on that thing, I mean, minus 150, that's crazy. Crazy town. Wake Forest looks like a regression candidate to me. I think to pretty much everybody. They went 4-1 in one-score games. They got to 9 wins with an offense that was not efficient at all. Now you got 4 offensive line starters. The travel gets tougher. The conference schedule steps up. The defense is not going to be as good. They lost some key pieces. The main total is 5.5, minus 125 to the over, which is tight. The more interesting angle might be under 6.5 alternate. It protects you even if Wake stays respectable while they drop from like 9 wins down to 6. Still going to be juiced pretty high at 6.5, but I mean, I don't see any world where they get to 7 wins. Could they get to 6? Yeah, that's why this thing's priced at 5.5. But if you can get if you can get a good number for 6.5 for Wake Forest, like I like that alt under quite a bit. Cal over 6.5 plus 120 is a number that I cannot get there, right? JKS is excellent, but first-year head coach, an entirely new staff, major turnover at skill positions and on defense, an offensive line that's still a question mark, multiple cross-country road trips. They don't have a bye until November 7th. A step on a duck, his model gives Cal only one FBS game all year where they've got a field goal advantage or more. That's not a team that I'm betting to get to 7 wins. So Cal under 6.5 that's going to be my favorite under on the whole board, especially considering you can get it at minus 120 in a couple of books. The best conference future on the board is SMU at plus 700. This team is not as talented as Miami, but the price is dramatically better, especially for that schedule. Jennings is one of the more experienced quarterbacks in the league. SMU has the best offensive line. They avoid both Miami and Clemson. Like, they can reach Charlotte without ever having to beat the best team in the conference during the regular season. Like, that's what I'm looking for out of a conference future. I want a capable team with a proven quarterback, a really friendly schedule, and a path that doesn't require beating really good teams. SMU checks every single box there. My favorite true long shot, because SMU, I mean, let's be honest, that is not a real long shot. NC State plus 2,500, this is purely a quarterback and schedule bet. Bailey gives them high-end play. They avoid a ton of the really good teams. They draw 6 of the bottom 7 projected teams in the league. Do I think they're the second best team in the ACC? Absolutely not. Do I think they have a realistic path to get to their second championship, or to the second championship game spot? Absolutely. At plus 2,500, that is more than enough to make this at least interesting. Favorite overs. Syracuse over 4.5. Plus 105. Yeah, Angeli is expected back. Quarterback depth is better. Karras should improve the defense. Syracuse plays 4 of the bottom 6 projected teams in the league. The turnover and statistical indicators at Phil Steele both point toward positive regression here. This team doesn't need to be great. They just got to get to 5 wins, and I think they can get there. I don't think they were as... I think this team was going to be pretty decent last year if Angeli had not gotten hurt. And this is plus money. It's one of the cleaner bets on the whole board, so I feel good about that one. Virginia Tech over 6.5. That's another one I like. I'm not a big fan of laying minus 150 or more. Franklin raises the floor there. Their 4th nationally returning production. I brought that up. Grunkemeyer, knows this, all the stuff, right? They got a great runway to start the season. The road trips to Clemson, Miami, and SMU kind of capped that championship ceiling. But Virginia Tech could lose all 3 of those. They could still get to 7 wins pretty easily. There is an over 7.5 at plus 170. If you want a little more juice, it's more aggressive, but the core opinion here is that this team makes a bowl game and has a real shot at finishing above 500. So, yeah, the over, not bad. NC State, when I bet over 6.5, it's probably the safest schedule-based win total on the board conceptually. The price is steep, but if you can still find those, the over 6.5, I feel is just simple. But also, I don't necessarily mind the over 7.5 that you can find at most places now. It's plus 120-ish. So if you're willing to stomach some more variance there, they would need 8 wins to cash that one. But between Bailey and the easiest schedule in the conference, I think that's pretty realistic. SMU over 8.5 at minus 125. That's playable, right? The schedule sets up a pretty direct path to 9 or 10 wins. But the only variance you got to deal with is Jennings' health and that defensive line rebuild. I think this is a notch behind Syracuse and the 2 schedule-based overs for me, but still an interesting one to keep track of. Clemson over 7.5 at minus 130. That's a low confidence play. It's talent, it's schedule. And it's not like... So I'm not suddenly trusting Dabo and Chad Morris, who hadn't coached in football in 5 years. I don't. But Clemson could be favored in 9 games. They get Miami at home. They simply have more raw talent than most of this league. I'd probably keep the stakes small because I think another 7... Well, getting to 8 wins I don't think is crazy for Clemson based on the talent profile that they've got. I'd pass on Louisville over 7.5 at minus 180. I felt really good about it earlier this offseason. But the more you look at schedules, the more you look at everything about this Louisville team, minus 180 is too expensive for a team with an unproven quarterback and, the offensive line turnover. I'd probably pass on Duke at 5.5. Do I trust Diaz? Yeah, absolutely. But, the personnel losses create way too much noise for me this year. I'd probably pass on Boston College at 3.5. That number already accounts for the brutal schedule. I would pass on Stanford at 3.5 too, although I'd slightly lean toward the over because 4 wins is not an impossible target for them. Let me summarize this. Let me give you a quick hitter. SMU plus 700 is my best conference future. NC State plus 2,500 is the best long shot. Syracuse over 4.5 at plus money. That's my favorite win total over. Cal under 6.5 is my favorite under. Also like Virginia Tech over 6.5, NC State over 6.5. And then Wake Forest alt total under 6.5 wins. Yeah, I think that's the regression angle to watch there. All right, so final predictions here. My surprise team is SMU, which calling a plus 700 conference contender a surprise does sound odd, but I think the surprise would be SMU actually winning the ACC and getting back to the playoff while all of the attention stays fixed on Miami, right? They got the quarterback. They got the offensive line. They avoid Miami and Clemson. You already know who they draw as far as their schedule. For SMU to hit that ceiling, Jennings has got to stay healthy. A real lead running back has got to emerge. Their defensive line transfers have got to hold up, and that co-coordinator setup has got to run smoothly. If all that happens, SMU goes 10-2. They win the ACC championship game. They get a playoff berth. My disappointment team is going to be Wake Forest. They earned real credit for 9 wins last year, but, they went 4-1 in one-score games. That's hard to repeat. We talked about the offensive line. The explosive play production could potentially dip this year, and the schedule is way tougher, and the travel gets heavier. Defense is still probably going to be all right, but I think the floor here is like another 4-8, or they might be able to get to 5-7. I don't see a bowl game there. Virginia is the other regression candidate. Schedule is still really good. It'll keep them from collapsing, but repeating 11 wins with another rebuilt roster, that is a real long shot. The most improved team should be Virginia Tech, I think. Franklin gives them the best combination of coaching upgrade, returning production, recruiting momentum in this entire conference. Syracuse might produce the biggest jump relative to where the market has them. North Carolina is going to be interesting. Offensively, certainly should be a little more efficient under Petrino. Although the offensive line losses are going to make that pretty hard to see early on, I would think, especially with that early schedule. Florida State could genuinely get better as a team without the win total showing much for it. Like, that schedule is ridiculous. And that brings us back to the main point. The top of the league is really simple. Miami is the best team. They've got the best quarterback. They've got the most talented roster. Miami should win the conference. Everything below that is negotiable, right? SMU's the quarterback and schedule contender. Louisville is the running game and consistency contender, which maybe more coaching consistency than roster, but still. Clemson, talent, redemption contender, because everybody's just written that team off. Virginia Tech, they've got the coaching upgrade, NC State schedule value, Virginia portal continuity experiment. Duke is the defending champion, just trying to survive a completely gutted offense here. It might not be the deepest championship race in college football, but it might be the strangest one, right? Miami does give the ACC a legit shot at a national title, and the other 16 teams give us a legitimate reason to argue about tiebreakers for all season long. Like, Miami is the best team in the ACC. The entertainment is going to be figuring out which of the other 16 is crazy enough to actually meet them in Charlotte. All right, that is going to wrap things up for the ACC. I appreciate all of you for being here, for watching the show each and every week. We are getting into July and August. Things are about to pick up. We still have the Big 12 that we're going to do next week. As you are watching this, I am on the beach. Hey, YouTube. Hey. And I'm having a blast with my kids. It's going to be great. It's going to be a wonderful time. I recorded this 3 days before, so if there's any news or anything that breaks in the ACC between now and then, that has to do with this season, not some lawsuit or whatever the other mess, all the political crap, right? I don't care. We're almost to football season. Don't get me unfocused on the games. That's all I'm asking. Do me a favor, like the video, subscribe to the channel, or channels. We've got multiple now. But knock all that stuff out. I would certainly appreciate it. Probably could have switched back over to this at some point to wrap this thing up. But either way, you guys are fantastic. Do me a favor. Jump in the comments. Tell me what I'm wrong about here. Y'all know I get real opinionated, but I don't mind having you guys come in and talk to me and tell me what you believe should be the right answers for this conference. Tell me who you're betting on. That's what I would like to know. All right, with that said, we're going to get out of here. Oh, subscribe to the podcast. Leave a nice 5-star review. I'd appreciate that. Let's do this thing. Take care of yourself. Take care of each other. God bless college football. And hopefully, all of your tickets cash this season.
Thanks for listening to Winning Cures Everything. Subscribe, leave a review or comment, follow @GaryWCE on X, and check out the web store,